Well, hi, everybody. I'm glad you're here. And if you don't know me, my name's Jason Tucker. I'm one of the pastors here. And I'm excited. I get to spend Labor Day weekend with you. And obviously, Labor Day weekend is a important weekend for many reasons. But let's be honest, for most people, the reason you love Labor Day is because you get Monday off. Come on, somebody. Right? You're like, come on. Where's my I get Monday off people? Listen, hang on real quick. My I get Monday off people, you better be whoop-wooing today. Okay? Where's my I get Monday off people on the count of three? Give me 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm excited today because this is just, again, this is just like a one week type message. It's not really part of a series. I just, coming out here this weekend, was thinking, what would be a good thing to talk about on a weekend like Labor Day? And, one of the things I've never really done is looked into work. Why do we celebrate Labor Day? What's the whole reason? Is it just to get Monday off, or is there something bigger to the story? And so I did some research on this, and I just really kind of, I felt impressed on my heart to talk about work related to our lives on a weekend like this. And so I'm just going to read this to you. Labor Day is a federal holiday in the United States celebrated on the first Monday of September to honor and recognize. This is the purpose of Labor Day, to honor and recognize the American labor movement and the works and contribution of laborers to the development and achievements of the United States of America. Labor Day is a day where we're recognizing that there have been many people that have labored and contributed and blood, sweat, and tears, working really hard to build what we call America today. And all of us are part of that in some capacity. If you've worked and paid taxes and done things to contribute to society in that way. And I think that's important. It's important to know that your work matters. It's important to know that the reason that you need Monday off is because you worked hard the other days, and we've decided as a country that we're going to celebrate on Monday the importance of you taking a day off and being recognized for the good work that you've done. And I think that's really, really important for where we're going today, because the reality of all of our lives is this. I think God built us this way. We all want our work to count for something. We do. Whatever work we do. Whatever kind of work we do, and we can work at many different things. We can work on our relationships. We want our relationships to count for something. We want good things to come out of our marriages and our parenting relationships with our kids. We want good relationships with our communities, our neighborhoods, again, our world around us. These working on our relationships, we want them to count for something. The work that we do with our hands, whether it's planting seed in the ground or running a press, or again, answering phone calls and returning emails, all of those things, we want them to count for something. We want to wake up and know that all of our work wasn't just looked over and not recognized. It wasn't appreciated. And frankly, the best way I can say this is, I think for all of us as followers of Jesus, the number one thing that you want to hear is this. On the other side of this life, you want the God of the universe to look at you and say, great job. Well done. Well done. You lived your life in a way that made a difference. Come on, we don't think about that moment a lot if we're honest. A lot of times in our work and in our lives, we just go about the business of doing the work that we do. We just put our hands to the plow and we just get after it and make things happen. And that's why a day like Monday is so great, because you get an opportunity to be appreciated and you get an opportunity to be recognized for the hard work that you do. But ultimately, the best well done would come from the Almighty. The best well done would come on the other side of this life when you take your last breath and the Almighty Creator of the universe looks at you and says, I am so proud of you. You did so good. You invested your life in something that made a difference. You woke up for the purposes that I gave you to wake up for, and you lived your life with all of that in focus. Now, again, if I'm honest with you, there are times that, probably more often than I'd love to admit, that I'm not really focused on that. That when I'm just doing the work that I need to do, sometimes I'm just keeping my head down. I'm just doing my job. I'm doing what I need to do. But I want my work to count for something. And so I read this passage a couple of weeks ago, and I circled it in my Bible, and it's really been sticking in my head and in my heart. I'll share it with you today. It's Psalms chapter 127, verse 1 and 2. It says this: unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. So God's got to do some building, or the people who are doing the building are laboring in vain. If you call yourself a follower of Christ, that statement right there, that first sentence, should make your ears perk up. Because to a certain degree, what it's proposing is this idea that you can put your hand to the plow your whole life and work hard your whole life, but at the end of it all, if God wasn't building the house, if it wasn't about the purposes of God, the plans of God, God's purpose for your life, if it wasn't about that, then all of that labor, all of those calluses on your hands, all of those hard things that come with work, it would all be in vain. God is the one who builds the house. It goes on to say, unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. Can I just take a second and say, it's so good to have leaders that realize in our cities and in our government offices that realize and recognize God's place in protecting their city, that realize God's place in helping to build communities up. Because ultimately, if God isn't involved, if God isn't at the center, this passage says it's really all for naught. God has to be at the center. He needs to be at the center in order for things to continue to be able to sustain and manifest the way that he wants them to go. It says, again, it goes on to say, for those that stand, if they stand and watch, they stand and watch in vain. In vain you rise early. Boy, that's a bummer, right? You're telling me I got up early all this time and it was really for nothing? Like, who are my people that you're, like when your alarm goes off, you're not a morning person? Come on, raise your hand. Yes, yeah, look around. Yeah, it's a thing, all right? And so, like, if you're not a morning person, you're like, don't talk to me until I have coffee. I'm so sorry. Like, I love you, but what happens before I have coffee is, that's on you, not on me, right? So, but that's a hard thing to hear, like, that I've been getting up early, I've been pouring my life into this thing, it says if you rise early and you stay up late toiling for the food that you eat, essentially, unless the Lord builds the house, it's really going to amount to not much. And so it's a great reminder on a weekend like Labor Day weekend. And I love this last part in this passage. It says, for he grants sleep to those he loves. He gives you a Monday off. Come on, somebody. You know what I'm talking about? That's just straight from the heart of God. Here you go. Take Monday off. I'm so proud of you. Great job for your work. So, Jason, what are you trying to tell us? Well, ultimately, in one sentence, I would say this. This is what I'm trying to tell you today. This is what the Lord's put on my heart today. For our work to matter, we have to understand how to work God's way every day. For our work to matter, we have to understand. We have to learn what it means to work God's way. We work God's way, and we do that every single day. We wake up with these purposes in our hearts. We wake up with this perspective on the world around us. So that got me thinking, well, what did God's work day look like? What did God's work day look like? And it's interesting because if you go into Scripture, God is omnipotent. He's the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. So I can't say with confidence this is God's first work day, but I can say with confidence that in the Bible, you get to see God's first work day that was made evident to us. Genesis chapter 1. This is the first day God went to work. God went to work doing things. He created things. on his very first day that we get to observe. Genesis chapter 1, we get to observe God's workday. This is what God did with his workday. And this has been so intriguing to me. The more that I've looked at this and the more that I've studied this, I've kind of scratched my head a little bit about how I've been approaching work sometimes. Let me read it to you and we'll talk about it. It says this: in the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God created. So at the very beginning, God was busy. He had a purpose. He had something he was going to get done. He created the heavens and the earth. And it says, now the earth was formless and empty. There wasn't much to it. It was formless and empty. And darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, say those next 4 words with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let there be light. He created. He created the daytime. I want you to notice something. On the first day, what came first, the chicken or the egg? On the first day, what came first, darkness or light? Darkness. Actually, darkness came first, and then God created light. He put his hand to creating light and all that would come from that moment. Keep that thought in your head, okay? To me, this is a very practical message today that I hope encourages you as someone who wants to hear well done in your life. So he goes on to say, God says, let there be light, and there was light. He created. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. He separated. He made a clear distinction between darkness and light. And then God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from darkness. And God called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And now here's the key that I don't want you to miss. And there was evening, and there was morning. Say those next 3 words to me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. The first day. God's first work day. He didn't set his alarm for 6 a.m. and say, time to go to work. God started with darkness. He started with darkness. And he addressed what was interesting is that the darkness was all part of his plan. The Bible says he created the heavens and the earth was dark and formless and without void. So God created it to be that way. A lot of times we associate that darkness with bad and the light with good, and that's okay that we do that, but I just want you to know that in this moment, God created this perfect blend of what his first workday looked like. His first workday started with darkness, and it finished with light. It started with darkness, and it finished with light. Jason, why does that matter? Well, I think it matters big time to us in our modern day world today. Because there's some very important things that I've been pulling out of this passage. For me personally, and I hope for you today, is this. God created a distinct separation between light and darkness. There was a distinct separation. No question about it. He said, I want to be clear, darkness and light are both part of the first day. These are part of your day. This was part of God's first workday. So that got me thinking, like, what's that look like? Well, ultimately, God's saying the perfect day is there's a split between light and darkness, right? Go ahead and put that next slide up. There's a split between light and darkness. He says there was evening and there was morning. There was evening and there was morning on the first day. This is a totally different way of thinking than we think in our current world and way of living right now, right? Here's how I know. Because the vast majority of us, we set our alarm for 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever it is, whatever time you get up, 5 a.m. if you're an early riser, and you jump out of bed and you get ready real quick and you run into the office. You get busy. You run into work. You get to working. You get to planting. You get to figuring it out. You got to put your hand to the plow. And so what's been challenging to me the more that I looked at this was this revelation or this idea that he started with evening first. God actually started with evening first, and then there was morning. And that was the first day. It wasn't run out the door. Anyone else like run out the door like frantically in the morning? Like anybody? Just me? You're like, what we've adapted in our world and our society is just this idea, I don't have time to do that. I got to get out the door. I'm busy. I have a lot of things to get to today, a whole list of them. So when I set my alarm for 6 a.m., I can't speak for you, but when I wake up at 6 a.m., I'm not milling around the house nice and easy, just taking my time. I'm most of the time I'm knocking things over. People are like, we look like inside the house, the kids are getting ready for school. We're all running around. We're like bumping into each other in the hallway because we're like half awake. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. Like running. Coffee, go, eat, lunch, got lunch money. Right? You're screaming all right, go, go, go. And then out the door we go. This is how we operate currently. And the reason that this stuck out to me so much thinking about Labor Day was just this idea because we're setting alarms on when we should get up in the morning, right? And if you're like me, many alarms. You're like, I need 9 alarms because I'm so tired. And I like trying to get out of bed. It's like, how many alarms do you need to set? You know, and I laugh now because like even the snooze button, it's like alternating snooze buttons. Like we're just making each other miserable in this way. Like hers goes off and then she snoozes it and then mine goes off and I snooze it. And hers goes off and she snoozes it, mine goes off and I snooze it. And we go back and forth. Like, but no. Like this is intriguing to me. And I hope it's intriguing to you. Again, very practical, very practical. Listen to this passage in 1 Corinthians and consider the way that we do work right now. Consider it. 1 Corinthians 9 says this, do you not know that in a race, all the runners run? In a race, all the runners run, but only one runner gets the prize. Only one. All the people set their alarms in the morning. All the people are trying to get out the door. All the people are hustle and bustle trying to make things happen and get things going. But again, only one of them gets the prize. And Paul says, so you, Christ followers, run in such a way as to get the prize. Run intentionally as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into, say those next 2 words to me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Strict training. Everybody that's going to run to win did strict training. That's how they were strict in their training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Jason, what are you trying to tell us? Let me try to tell you in a story, okay? Malachi, my son, is a senior this year, and I'm so thankful he's not here today because he will kill me for showing you this picture, but this is a picture of my son, Malachi, after he ran his first cross-country race, okay? Malachi in junior high came up to me and said, Dad, I want to run cross-country. I said, son, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because, again, I grew up in a house where we played football, basketball, and baseball. That's what we did. And he said, they offer cross-country, and I want to run. I'm like, we used to run at the end of practice. It was called conditioning, and I hated it. And he's like, no, I want to run. That's what I want to do. I'm like, okay, I can tell you nothing about running. I don't know I don't know how to help you with this. Again, I'll do my best. And so he shows up, and like we're getting into cross-country season. I'm like, hey, are you starting to, how's things going? Good. And I'm like, I don't see you training much. I don't see you I don't see you running many, like you're running sprints in the front yard or what's happening? Like, you know, like cross-country's happening. And then like, you're not really doing much. He's like, nah, it's good. It's just running. Okay. And then so this is him in 7th grade at the end of his first cross-country race. He just finished his cross-country race. I can assure you that this is the face of a child that did minimal to no preparation for this race. Because he got done, and I was the dad that was running with him. You know, they like go back into this place, and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm chasing them through the woods. I am an overweight, middle-aged, white-haired man, just like, let's go! I'm screaming, come on, baby, let's go! Right? I'm like, come on. And so we're moving, and I'm like, where can I go next? And they're like, they're going to be over there, over that corner. And I'm like, okay. And I take off running, and my wife is just like, she's walking with her coffee, like. So I run to the next spot, and I'm waiting. I'm like, where's Malachi? Where's Malachi? Where's that? And I'm like, 1 runner, 2 runner, 3, 50, 70. I'm like, oh boy. He comes around that corner, and I'm looking at him, and like we make eye contact, and the look on his face is like, dear goodness, I have made a terrible mistake with my life. And I'm like, you got this, boy. And he shakes his head at me like this. No. I'm like, don't quit. And he comes by, and then the next time he's a little slower coming by. And then the next time he's a little slower. And then you get to the end, like the stretch where they got to finish, and it's like a straightaway. And that's where as a parent, you've literally saved all your energy for that moment. Because you're going to scream and run with them down the plate. And here's Malachi and I'm like, here he comes around. So I'm like set, right? You want to be athletic, right? Come on, dads. You know what I'm talking about? I'm like, here he comes, and I'm like, okay, boy, let's go. And I take off running, and pretty soon I'm like, what? He's, okay, boy, let's go. You good? Come on, buddy, you can do this. You can do it. And I'm not running. I'm like walking sideways, like, come on, man, we can do this. And he comes across the finish line, and as a dad, I dropped my phone, so I'm going to use this as an analogy. I said, you did it. I'm so proud of you, man. Way to go. I was like, let me get your picture. And that's what I got. He looked at me. He's like, why do I tell you that story? Because, we got in the car, and I'm like, what? Did you have fun? And he said, no. I said, why? Like, I thought, like this, you were so pumped about doing this. He said, Dad, that was awful. That was awful. He's like, not only was I running, there were like kids running into me like on the track, and it's like I'm running through a woods, and the path is like this wide. There's people tripping you. It's muddy. He's like, I just didn't know it was going to be like that. Let me finish this passage, and we'll keep talking. Paul went on to say, therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I don't run my race like a person running aimlessly. Like someone running aimlessly, I do not fight like a boxer that's just swinging at the air. I'm just swinging at the air. I'm not intentional at all. He says, no, I strike a blow to my body, and I make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. I think the lesson that Malachi learned in that first race, I think personally, again, I'm just proposing to you some things God's been speaking to me. I think what God's been speaking to me is, as much as Malachi wasn't ready for that race on that day, his first one, it got better after that. But as much as he wasn't ready for that first day, sometimes I'm not ready for my day. Sometimes I'm walking into my day not prepared. I've done no thinking about what's going to happen during the light hours. I've not really done anything to get ready or prepare for the race or train for the race or put any thought into the race, because frankly, all I did, the most mental energy I put into it was I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and I hope to just get up and go and make it happen. And that's very similar to the race he ran. And then I think about that in comparison with God's first work day, that it started with evening and then it was morning. It's like I'm thinking, man, am I just doing this backwards? How can I do this better? How can I run my race more intentionally? And that's really what I want to finish off by telling you today. I think when it comes to our work, if we want to hear good, well done, good and faithful servant, if we want to stand before God at the end of our race and not be like, if we want to stand before God and be like, I ran hard, and God goes, oh my goodness, I am so proud of you. You did so good. You were so good. That's the question that I've kind of just been trying to answer. How do you run to win each day? How do I run to win the race each day when it comes to my work and my relationships and my family? And I look at how God designed this whole thing and I think, man, maybe it's just as simple as when they start a cross-country race, there are 3 things they say. They get the runners together. This was Malachi before the race. They get you together and they get you on a line. And someone who's getting ready to start the race says this, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Runners, are you ready?" The next words out of that person's mouth is, "Get set." And then they say, "Go." When the gun goes off and the runners take off. And I started to think about that more deeply and ponder that more deeply. And again, just thinking about people that I know that they've made an incredible difference in the world and looking at their lives and going, how did they run their race? How did they run their race? And how can I run my race the same? I'll give you an example. I love this quote. This, again, well-respected man here, John Wooden, coach, NCAA basketball coach, many championships, much success. I loved his words here because they capture the essence of how each one of us should wake up every day. He said this, "You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you." You can't live a perfect day without knowing that you have a great purpose in this world. You have an incredible purpose in this world. You are not waking up on Monday just to go type some emails or go answer some phone calls. You're not waking up on Monday just to go get that seed in the ground or figure out how to push the plow or do whatever. No, you're waking up knowing that you as a follower of Christ, me as a follower of Christ, the reason we're on this planet, the way we hear God Almighty say, "Great job," is if we live every day with that in our heads and in our hearts. The perfect day happens when I do something for someone they could never repay me for. That's what the perfect day looks like. I go serve people. I go love people when they don't deserve it. I go live in a way that people see my life and your life, and it makes an incredible difference in the life of another person. So I just, again, for the sake of time today, here we go. How do I do that? Are you ready? Are you ready? That's where it starts. Are you ready? God started with evening. Are you ready? Separate the day and night. Separate the day and night. You know, we used to live in a world where when it got dark, guess what people did? They went to bed. Guess what happens in our world? When I get home and it gets dark, I'm like, it's time to party. I've been working hard all day. Woo! I need to blow off some steam. It's no wonder people get less sleep these days. When the sun went down 100 years ago, guess what people did? They got into bed and they went to sleep. What do? Or we turn the TV on and we watch the game. I think ultimately this was interesting to me. I just started to think about this more, Genesis chapter 1, and I started thinking, I'm not really living the perfect day like God designed it. I'm more living the what's left day. I'm going to jump around on you here a little bit for the sake of time. Can you put that slide up, the what's left day? The what's left day, this is my day, most days. I set the alarm for 5 a.m. I'm a pretty early riser for the most part. But I set the alarm for 5 a.m. and I got a few hours there to get ready to get out the door. But my day is more like this. Like if you were running a race, my day's more like this. Set, go! Set, go! Set the alarm and go, baby. Go, go! Woo! Woo-hoo! I get to lunch, I'm like, I need more caffeine. That's how I run my race a lot. But remember, the first day God created you. There was evening, there was morning. You know, for me, I I wasn't setting the table at all the evening before. I wasn't seeing the importance of when the sun goes down. What that does to set me up to win the race the next day, right? When a runner, what did Paul say? When a runner races, he goes into strict training. She goes into strict training. I start thinking about, how am I prepared for this race I'm about to run tomorrow morning? Because again, here, when the light happens, when light happens, I'm going to run the race. Am I prepared for this race? Are you ready? Are you ready? That's a great question. Did I see the separation? Did I see the importance of the night that led into the day? Did I see the importance of how that all works? Because if I didn't, it's probably foolish for me to believe that I'll be able to live fully for the purposes of God just waking up and thinking, set, go. I won't have time to think about that. I won't have done any preparation to think about that. I won't have gotten any sleep to do that. I'll just be thinking, set, go, set, go, set, go. And pretty soon I'm tired. Pretty soon I'm worn out. And as a laborer, I want to know how to labor well. So I think the first thing we have to do if we're going to do that is we have to see the importance of the evening and the day. We have to separate the day from the night. Proverbs chapter 3 says this, my child, don't lose sight of common sense and discernment. Don't lose sight of common sense and discernment. In other words, you're going to run the race tomorrow without preparing the night before? You're going to be intentional about living for Jesus the next day without any thought about living for Jesus the night before? It just doesn't, it's not going to work well that way. I have to be thinking the night before, Jason, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you making yourself ready for what God is about to do in and through your life when that sun comes up? Are you ready for that? That's where it all begins. And I just need to use some common sense and discernment. It says, hang on to them, for they will refresh your soul. They're like jewels in a necklace. They keep you safe on your way, and they keep your feet from stumbling. Common sense and discernment. So I need to ask myself, when it's dark outside, are you ready for what happens when that sun comes up tomorrow? Are you ready? Second thing, I need to get set. What does it mean to get set? Well, when you get set in a race, you're getting on the starting block and you're positioning yourself ready to go. You're making ready to run the race. So let me just say it this way. If I'm going to get set, I have to make sleeping and setting my day up an anchor in my life. You know, in our world today, we sleep with what time we have left. We're like, it was a busy day. I ran a lot. I had a lot to do. And we sleep with the time we have left. We don't make sleep an anchor. Like, we set alarms to wake up, and maybe, again, I'm just proposing some ideas to you today as a laborer. Maybe we should set alarms to go to bed. If you're feeling tired and run down and you're like, man, I just working so hard, maybe we should set alarms to go to bed. Hey, the alarm just went off and it's time to go to sleep. Get your rear end in bed. I need that. I can't speak for you, but I know for me, if I don't have an alarm that tells me to go to bed, I'm probably going to sit there and watch that game. I'm going to watch in the fourth quarter and hope that Michigan is going to blow that game last night. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I might have meant to say that, sorry. No, anchoring your sleep. Anchoring your sleep. My sleep is an anchor. I need this. This helps me get set for the day. I'm not going to sleep with what time I have left. I'm going to sleep as an anchor. And then your setup time. What's your setup time look like? What does that look like? Again, your setup time looks like this. David, Psalm chapter 27, Psalms 27, he says this, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lay down in green pastures. God tells me you need to sleep. You can't do what I've got for you to do tomorrow and hear, well done, without you getting some sleep tonight. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul and guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, even though I go through dark times, hard seasons, David said, I will fear no evil, for you're with me, and your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup is overflowing. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Jason, what are you saying? I'm saying, honestly, the perfect day probably looks like this. The perfect day probably looks like this. Go to that slide that says the perfect day. I really need to start the night before asking myself the question, am I ready? Are you ready? We're getting ready to run a race. Are you ready? That should have all happened when it was dark outside. That should have happened in the evening, because I need about 8 hours of sleep. Come on, somebody. If you tell yourself you need less, I promise you, you are lying to yourself, because God knows when to shut the lights off. He shuts the lights off and says, go to bed. You need sleep. So I anchor my 8 hours of sleep, but then after, am I ready? The question is, am I set? Ready? In the morning when the alarm goes off, get set. Get set. You got about 2 hours here. Get set. Get set for your day. Get on the mark. Get up there with intention that you're going to run today for the purposes of God in your life. Get set. How do you do that? Well, we read the Bible together at this church all the time. And I believe wholeheartedly that things like the YouVersion Bible app are a great thing for you to engage in to get set. In the morning, instead of getting on whatever social media platform you're on, you're opening the Bible app and going, I need some Jesus time. Come on, somebody. I need some Jesus time. That's what getting set looks like. I need to spend some time praying. God, this race before me today that I'm getting ready to run, I'm asking you please to help me. I'm asking you please to go before me. I'm asking you please to give me wisdom, give me direction, give me purpose. Help me stay focused on my purpose today and not get so sideways and hung up on things that don't matter. I want to run to win today. Are you ready? Get set. 7:14. Come on, 7:14. Here's where you at. 7:14. Monday through Friday. Pastors on here saying 7:14 a.m. we'll be here. We'll be here. We're doing the same thing. We're opening a Bible going, we're going to do the best we can today. We're not trying to be a Bible scholar. We're trying to be a Jesus follower. And a Jesus follower just opens the Bible and says, I need this. I can't do this today without this. I take some time. I pray. I get my mind right. Proverbs chapter 16:3. Proverbs 16:3 says this, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Wait, get set. Are you ready? Night before, morning of. Get set. Get set. God, whatever I'm doing today, I want it to be about your plans and your purposes. God, whatever I'm doing today, I want it to bring honor and glory to your name today. I'm on my knees this morning right here before I even think about starting this day, and I'm going to tell you now, God, I can't do this without you. I can't do this without you. Please go before me every step of the way today. I know that I'm not enough, but I know that you are enough. That where I'm weak, you're strong. I'm asking you to help me, guide me, direct me today. Give me wisdom. Holy Spirit, direct my life today. Now I'm set. Now I'm set. I got ready the night before. I took time in the morning to get set. And then when the gun goes off, when it's time, you know what to do. Go, baby, go. Work hard. Get after it. Make it happen. Because today you're working for the purposes and living in the promises of God Almighty. And I want to say, go, go, go. Do deep work. Do meaningful work. Don't just wake up and think you're walking into an office just to send some emails. Don't just think you're a person that's making some phone calls that are meaningless, or working in a factory that you're not doing anything that matters or accounts in eternity. I promise you this, you are carriers of light to a world that needs you. There's a world out there that needs you. They need you in that factory. They need you in that office. They need you in that community meeting. They need you. So you got ready, you got set, and it's time to go, baby, go. You work with all of your might. You do deep, meaningful work with all of your heart. Here's the key. Like you're working for the Lord. You work like you're working for Jesus. Not like you're working for an earthly master. Not like you're working for a government that takes taxes out of your paycheck. You work like I'm working for Jesus today. I've got a race to run, and I'm going to run this race like I want to win it. I'm going to run it intentionally. I'm going to go after it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be twists and turns and muddy spots on the course where people are bumping into me. And I'm going to be like Malachi on that day where it's hard to run. And I'm tired. And I wasn't ready sometimes. But I'll get better. I'll learn. I'll grow. I'll stop living my days like set, go, set, go, set, go. And I'll start living my days like, are you ready, Jason? The sun is down. Go to sleep. Anchor that. I'll focus on my setup time. God, I can't do this without you. And then when I run, I'll work like I'm working for Jesus. Colossians 3, whatever you do, work at it with, say those next three words to me on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. All your heart. When I'm not getting this right, I promise you, I'm not giving all my heart to my work. Work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. You're waking up on Monday morning and you're ready. I'm ready. Sunday night, tonight, I'm ready. I got ready. Monday morning, you're getting set. You're cracking a Bible open. You're saying, I need you. You're setting things up in your heart. You're praying humbly before God, saying, God, I need your help to run this race tomorrow. But then when that alarm goes off and you get out the door and you walk into that office, you walk in there knowing today God has a purpose. What is that purpose? Finish with these words from Coach John Wooden. You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. I'm so thankful that someone lived with purpose one day. The person that told me about Jesus. Because there was a time in my life where I didn't have Jesus. There was a time in my life where I was lost without him. I had no idea that he loved me or he wanted anything good for my life. But somebody was ready. Somebody was ready. Somebody got set and somebody did their work like they were working for the Lord, and that made a difference in my life. And that's why even today I stand here and think, what difference would it make if all of us decided to do the same?